Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music with me, the 80s Mixtaper. If you're new to the show, here's a little backstory. In 2016, in what was the most midlife crisis ever, I decided to attempt to listen to every single UK chart entry from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. It was a slow burn at first, but by the time COVID came along and we were all twiddling our thumbs, a lot of Depeche Mode, ABC and Culture Club later, and I'd done it by 2021. This pod is the love child of that particular affair. In it, we go end to end, picking out the absolute smashes, the interesting backstories, and the downright weird stuff, which tell the story of the 80s, tune by tune, and in calendar order. Unfortunately, we can't play the tunes on the pod due to pesky copyright laws, but fear not, I've created 13 song playlists for both Spotify and Apple Music, links to which you will find alongside a full track listing in the episode description. As always, we love your reminiscences, corrections, and anything else 80s. Hell, if you really want, you could even give your mum a shout out. You can find me on your socials as the 80s Mixtaper, or if you're old school and want to email in, it's completed80s, that's 80s, completed80s at AOL.com. You join us again for playlist 16, and this playlist really just mops up November and a fair chunk of December 1980. Playlist 17, when we get to it, will be a shorter affair as we celebrate the end of the first year of our quest and what to look forward to. But on this playlist, we hit tune 200. Can you believe it? And also, can you see how this now equates to about 3,000 songs, which I think I've mentioned previously? It's a lot, but we'll get there. Anyway, let's now get back to the music. So, the last time we met Kenny Rogers, he was deep in his late 70s drama novel era, churning out vividly cinematic country songs like Coward of the County, a song about teenage trauma and violent revenge that somehow still got played at family barbecues. And then, barely a year later, Kenny changes direction, straight into one of the biggest, swooniest, soft-focused love ballads of this early decade. This is Lady, the 1980 single written and produced by none other than Lionel Richie. The song that made Kenny Rogers not just a country icon, but a pop icon, an everything icon, a man so universally beloved that even your R&B loving aunt, who swore she only listened to Luther Vandross, would turn up the radio when Lady came on. This is our track 1 today, playlist 16. The origin story goes something like this. Kenny Rogers, looking for a new sound, reaches out to Lionel Richie, who at the time is still leading the Commodores and writing devastatingly smooth ballads like 3 Times a Lady and Still. Kenny hears Lady and loves it immediately. Only one problem, Lionel hasn't actually finished writing it. So Kenny literally hands Lionel a legal pad and a pen, and Lionel, in a move of absolute songwriting legend, finishes the song right there, on the spot. You can imagine Kenny sitting there, sipping something brown and expensive, watching one of the greatest love songs of the decade materialise in front of him in real time. Lady is earnest. It is sincere to the point of theatricality. The first line is, "Lady, I'm your knight in shining armour and I love you." There's no irony here, no wink, no self-awareness, no hesitation, just pure, undiluted devotion. The song is an open love letter, the kind of thing a man might attempt to sing at a wedding and immediately regret because there is no way you're hitting those notes. But that's the thing about Kenny Rogers. The chap could sell it. He wasn't just a country singer, he was a storyteller, a raconteur. His voice had this warm, slightly weathered quality, like the sound equivalent to a well-worn leather jacket. That made even the most over-the-top lyrics feel earned. And backed by Lionel Richie's impossibly lush production, Lady becomes this sweeping, dramatic, movie-ending moment of a song. And commercially, Lady was an absolute monster. Released in September 1980 in the US, it became the first song in history to top the Billboard Hot 100, Hot Country Songs, and Adult Contemporary charts all at once, a genre-spanning feat that basically screamed, "Everybody loves Kenny Rogers now, everybody, no exceptions." Over in the UK, it climbed to number 12 on the official singles chart, proving that even a country star with a Texas-sized beard could make Brits swoon. It stayed on the UK charts for 12 weeks, which, if you're counting at home, is 3 solid months of British people slow dancing in their living rooms. And the legacy. Lady turned Kenny Rogers from a country superstar into the crossover king. This was the moment he became bigger than Nashville. This was the moment he became America's favourite soft rock cowboy. For Lionel Richie, it was proof that he could write a hit outside the Commodores, a warm-up for his eventual solo domination. And for the rest of us, it was yet another reminder that Kenny Rogers could do anything. Sing about gambling, sing about tragic country fair love stories, sing about revenge-fueled fistfights, and then turn around and absolutely crush a love ballad so sincere it could single-handedly increase your parents' anniversary card budget. Lady isn't cool, it never was, it never needed to be, it just works. It's a song for people who mean it when they say they're in love. It's a song that doesn't know how to be anything other than massive and shamelessly romantic. And if you've ever doubted its power, just put it out on a wedding and watch a whole generation of couples get misty-eyed before pulling each other onto the dance floor. That's Kenny Rogers for you. That's Lionel Richie for you. Our track 2 today, and we're going to introduce one of the main protagonists of the first part of the decade, a band synonymous with the New Romantics and with boy band-esque good looks. One of the originators of modern pop. If Duran Duran with a yin, then Spandau Ballet with a yang. This is their first entry into pop stardom. To cut a long story short, this is track 2. In the late 1970s, amidst the gritty backdrop of London's burgeoning punk scene, a group of schoolmates from Dame Alice Owen's school in Islington decided to carve out a new musical path. Gary Kemp and Steve Norman, inspired by the raw energy of the Sex Pistols, picked up their guitars in October 1976 and formed a band. They were soon joined by drummer John Keeble, bassist Michael Ellison, and vocalist Tony Hadley. Their initial repertoire included spirited covers of classics like Rolling Stones' Silver Train and the Beatles' I Wanna Be Your Man, performed during lunchtime rehearsals in the school's music room. Their debut gig, a Christmas party in the school dining room in December 1976. As with many nascent bands, lineup changes and rebranding were part of their evolution. Ellison's departure led to Norman switching to bass, and the group rebranded as The Cut. By 1977, with the addition of bassist Richard Miller, they transformed into the Makers, channeling the mod aesthetics of the Small Faces and crafting original compositions like Fantasy Girl and Pin-Ups. Positive reviews from the British music press outlets, such as Sounds and The NME, buoyed their early confidence. The pivotal moment arrived when their manager, Steve Dagger, suggested that Gary's brother Martin Kemp take up the bass duties. Martin's charisma had already been evident during his time as a roadie, captivating the female fans. With this final lineup, Tony Hadley on vocals, Gary Kemp on guitar, Martin Kemp on bass, Steve Norman on guitar and saxophone, and John Keeble on drums, the band rebranded as Gentry. Their inaugural performance under this moniker was on July the 1st, 1978, at Middlesex Polytechnic in Cockfosters. The late 1970s London club scene was a melting pot of creativity and reinvention. In the autumn of 1978, Steve Strange and DJ Rusty Egan initiated a weekly Tuesday night at Billy's in Soho, offering a sanctuary for those disenchanted with the nihilism of punk. This underground movement embraced electronic music and flamboyant fashion, drawing inspiration from artists like David Bowie and Roxy Music. The scene became a canvas for art students and fashion designers, fostering a culture of androgyny and avant-garde aesthetics. As the scene evolved, Strange and Egan relocated their club night to the Blitz Wine Bar in Covent Garden in 1979. The Blitz became the epicentre of what the media would dub the New Romantic movement. Its patrons, known as the Blitz Kids, included future icons like Boy George, Marilyn, and members of Spandau Ballet. The club's emphasis on style and exclusivity made it a breeding ground for musical innovation and fashion experimentation. Amidst this vibrant milieu, the band, now seeking a name that encapsulated their evolving identity, found inspiration from writer and friend Robert Elms. During a trip to Berlin, Elms had come across the phrase Spandau Ballet scrawled on a wall, a haunting reference to the spasmodic movements of prisoners executed at Spandau Prison. The juxtaposition of elegance and darkness resonated with the band, and thus Spandau Ballet was born. Their first performance of Spandau Ballet was at the Blitz Christmas party on December the 5th, 1979. The band's blend of synthesizers, saxophones and sharp tailoring set them apart, aligning perfectly with the club's ethos. They became the house band for the Blitz Kids, embodying the sound and the style of the New Romantic movement. To Cut a Long Story Short is released in November 1980. It is their debut single, and it is, to put it simply, an absolute weapon of a track. A choppy, relentless synthesizer riff that sounds like a battle march into a dystopian future. Drum fills that punch you in the face, and Tony Hadley's voice, massive, theatrical, the kind of voice that sounds like it should be coming from someone twice his size. The opening lines, "Soldier is turning, see him through the white light, running from strangers, see you in the valley." What matters is the delivery. Hadley doesn't sing so much as declare, each syllable bursting out of him with the conviction of a man whose ruffled shirt is starched to within an inch of its life. If punk was about sneering at authority, To Cut a Long Story Short sounds like a battle cry of a movement that plans to take over and install its own. The song takes off. It is a top 5 hit in the UK, peaking at number 5 on the charts. It is one of the first proper New Romantic hits, paving the way for the likes of Visage, Duran Duran and Ultravox. It is in essence a statement of intent. This is what the future sounds like. Spandau Ballet have arrived, and they are dressed better than you, far better. And then, almost immediately, the shift begins. The band, restless and ambitious, don't want to be tied to the scene that birthed them. The synths of their first album start giving way to something warmer, richer. As we will see, by 1983 they are releasing True, a song that sounds like it was designed specifically to be played over the closing credits of a 1980s John Hughes Rite de Passage movie. It will hit number 1. It will change everything. The hard edges of To Cut a Long Story Short will be smoothed into the soul-tinged sophistopop that will define Spandau Ballet and indeed pop music in the public imagination. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. In late 1980, Spandau Ballet are Blitz Kids made good, the house band of a movement that is about to become a full-fledged cultural moment. To Cut a Long Story Short is the sound of a band kicking the door in and announcing their arrival. It is the sound of 1980 being shoved forcibly into 1981. It is the sound of a generation that has had enough of beige and brown, bondage pants and safety pins, and is about to paint the world in neon and chrome, and look good doing it. Track 3 today, and we're back with the legends Diana Ross. We've had her reinvention with Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards with Upside Down, an absolute classic song. Bizarrely, she then released My Old Piano. A good song, but what made this so bizarre is that this next track is an absolute banger and has gone on to mean a lot to different groups of people. It's I'm Coming Out. The funky groove kicks in, and there it is, that unmistakable, effervescent opening line. I'm coming out, I want the world to know. Got to let it show. Press play now. This is a song about freedom. This is a song about declaring yourself to the universe and letting the confetti rain down. But what Diana Ross herself did not know, at least not at first, was that she had just recorded what would become an enduring LGBTQ anthem, a song that would live forever on dance floors, pride parades, and eventually late 90s rap radio. It's 1979 and Diana Ross is in a transitional phase. She's already an icon, lead singer of the Supremes, Motown royalty, disco superstar, but she wants something new, something fresh, something that will cement her relevance in the new decade. Enter Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, the masterminds behind Chic. You know the rest of the story, we've covered it twice already. One night, Nile Rodgers is at a club at New York City when he notices something. Everywhere he looks, there are drag queens dressed as Diana Ross. It's like a sea of Diana Rosses shimmering and twirling in all their glamorous sequin glory. And Niall gets an idea. He writes a song for Diana inspired by this moment called I'm Coming Out. The phrase, of course, has already taken root in LGBT culture, signifying self-acceptance, an announcement of identity, a joyous declaration of truth. Rodgers envisions the song as a gift to the gay community, an anthem of empowerment, and Ross, unknowing of its coded meaning, loves it. Then she plays it for Motown founder Berry Gordy, and Berry Gordy does not love it. Legend has it that Gordy freaks out, telling Ross that this song will destroy her career, that people will think she's coming out as gay herself, that this is a risk she cannot afford to take. Ross, now realising what the phrase means, is momentarily taken aback, but she sticks with it. The album Diana is released in 1980 and I'm Coming Out is also released. The song takes off, soaring to number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 13 in the UK. And while it may not have been written as an explicit coming out song, that's what it becomes. It's embraced by the LGBTQ+ community and also immediately played in clubs at pride marches in the bedrooms of kids still figuring themselves out. Diana Ross, whether she planned it or not, had delivered one of the greatest anthems of self-affirmation ever recorded. But the story doesn't end there, because 17 years later, I'm Coming Out gets a second life in the most unexpected way. In 1997, the notorious B.I.G. has already been gone for a few months, and a posthumous single called Mo Money Mo Problems hits the airwaves. If you were alive then, you remember. That glossy, Hype Williams directed music video, the red jumpsuits, Puff Daddy playing golf for some reason, and then that unmistakable horn riff kicks in. Yes, Mo Money Mo Problems is built around a sample of I'm Coming Out, and the result is something transcendent. Puff Daddy and Mace deliver verses about wealth and fame over a beat that feels almost absurdly joyful, while Biggie, despite being technically posthumous, steals the show with a verse that acknowledges the dark side of success. It becomes Biggie's second posthumous number 1 hit, cementing his legacy. So, what we have here is a disco song inspired by a club full of Diana Ross drag queens, turned into a gay anthem, turned into a late 90s rap classic about excessive wealth and its consequences. That's the magic of pop music. Songs evolve, they take on new meanings, they live multiple lives. And I'm Coming Out, it's still out there, still playing, still making people feel like they can be whoever they want to be, as loudly as they want. For our next song. By late 1980, Abba had already conquered the world, and the world was just a little exhausted about it. This is what happens when you've been the most inescapable pop act on the planet for half a decade. You're starting to see cracks in the foundation, hearing whispers of disco backlash, sensing the faint but unmistakable presence of the phrase guilty pleasure lurking in the shadows. But Abba wasn't quite ready to fade into the background yet, not before one last UK number 1 anyway. And so, on November the 3rd, 1980, they dropped Supertrouper, a song about the crushing loneliness of being a pop megastar, disguised as an upbeat stadium anthem. It is, of course, perfect. This is track 4. Let's get the title out the way first. Supertrouper is not a person. It's not a funky little trooper. It's not an enthusiastic musician with a can-do attitude. It's actually a light. Specifically, it is a giant-ass follow spotlight used for stadium concerts. This is peak Abba writing a song about the suffocating nature of fame and naming it after the literal beam of light that makes it impossible for you to hide. Right out the gate, the song hits you with its mission statement. Supertrouper, beams are gonna blind me, but I won't feel blue like I always do, because somewhere in the crowd there's you. Translation, I hate my life on tour. I hate the constant cycle of playing to giant faceless crowds, pretending to enjoy it, getting on a plane, repeating. But tonight, at least there's one person in the audience who makes it all worth it. It's sentimental, sure, but it's also deeply weary. This is a song about showing up, smiling through the exhaustion, and clinging to whatever small shred of personal meaning you can find. This was ABBA's last UK number one, their 9th in total, and it reigned for 3 weeks. By this point, ABBA was not the same ABBA that gave you Dancing Queen or Mamma Mia. They were still a pristine pop machine, sure, but behind the scenes, the fairy tale was cracking. Both of the band's core relationships had fallen apart. First Agneta and Bjorn, then Benny and Frida. Supertrouper was recorded in the thick of this, making its themes of loneliness and exhaustion hit even harder. And let's talk about Frida for a second. She sings lead here, and it's a moment. There's a quiet kind of devastation in her delivery, less soaring drama, more resigned melancholy. You hear it especially in the second verse. I was sick and tired of everything when I called you last night from Glasgow. A lyrical shout out to Glasgow for reasons that are both specific and, let's be honest, probably arbitrary. Benny and Bjorn reportedly picked it because it fit the melody. No disrespects to Glasgow, but this could as easily have been Bristol or Toronto. The song itself is classic late period ABBA. The melody is so good, the harmonies are excellent, the production is crisp, and it almost tricks you into missing how sad the song is. There's a marching beat, a carnival-like jauntiness, an almost musical theatre quality to the chorus. It's stadium pop, but with a deep, aching core. It dominated Europe, number one in the UK, Ireland, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, and more. In the US, it peaked at a modest number 45 on the Billboard Hot 100. The music video is also peak ABBA. It features the band surrounded by literal circus, because why not? Clowns, jugglers, a full parade of surreal performers. And in the middle of it all, Frida in a massive fur coat staring directly into your soul like she knows all your secrets. Supertrouper became one of ABBA's biggest selling singles, moving over 700,000 copies in the UK alone. It outlived the band's initial run, making its way into the Mamma Mia musical, the movie, the sequel, and roughly 1 billion wedding dance floors, because it's eternal. ABBA, of course, would continue making music for another year or so, before going on what remains one of the longest indefinite hiatuses in pop history. But, and it is a big but, this was the last time they stood at the very top of the UK charts, beaming their glossy, deceptively heartbreaking Swedish magic down on us all. And what a good way to go out. Track 5 today, and our next band, well, you'll either know or you won't. If you've watched Austin Powers, you might know a specific line from their most famous song, but they were never popular in the UK. We're talking about Devo. And we're talking about how a song that barely scraped the UK singles chart, peaking at a dismal number 51, somehow became one of the most recognisable American new wave hits of the 1980s. So how did Whip It by Devo, a song that was never really meant to be a hit at all, end up soundtracking commercials, popping up in movies, and getting lodged so deep into the American subconscious that even Dr. Evil quotes it in Austin Powers? That's the mystery of Whip It. And this is our introduction to Devo. Firstly, big announcement. This is track 200, folks. Can you believe that we're already 200 songs deep into this? And so hopefully you can see by the time that we complete this mission, which I reckon will probably be in about 5 years' time, we will probably come in around 3,000 songs. So well done. You've got in more or less at the ground floor. Anyway, here's to the next 100. So Devo, they don't name bands like that anymore. Devo were not just a band, but a concept, an art project, a reaction to everything wrong with post-war America. The name comes from devolution, the idea that instead of progressing, humanity was in actual fact regressing. It was satirical, sure, but it was also kind of sincere. Devo's early performances were bizarre, theatrical affairs. They wore hazmat suits and industrial jumpsuits. They had a character named Bougie Boy, a creepy infantile figure played by Mark Mothersbaugh in a rubber mask. who spoke in a high-pitched voice and might, in the right light, haunt your dreams forever. Devo was weird before being weird was a mainstream aesthetic. They were punk, but they were also robots. They looked at society and saw a mechanised, dumbed-down world spiralling into absurdity, so they responded in kind. The band was formed in the early 1970s at Kent State University by Gerald Casale and Bob Lewis, right around the time of the infamous Kent State Massacre, where 4 students were shot and killed by the National Guard. Casale was there, he saw it happen, and after that something shifted. The world was broken, and Devo was a way of dealing with it. Mark Mothersbaugh soon joined, bringing along his cartoonist synth lines and high-pitched vocal delivery. Bob Mothersbaugh, Mark's brother, and Alan Myers rounded out the classic lineup, and Devo officially became the most confrontationally odd band in Akron, Ohio. David Bowie and Iggy Pop got wind of them and loved them. Brian Eno produced their debut album, Question Are We Not Men answers We Are Devo, in 1978, and it was not for everyone. It was jittery, paranoid, filled with robotic vocals and deconstructed rock and roll tropes. Their cover of the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction stripped all the bluesy swagger out and replaced it with cold, syncopated stabs of guitar and synthesizer, making Mick Jagger sound like he had no human soul whatsoever. It was brilliant, it was also deeply unsettling, and it did not crack the Billboard 200. The second album, Duty Now for the Future in 1979, did marginally better, but it wasn't until 1980 that Devo stumbled, almost accidentally, into commercial success with Freedom of Choice and its unlikely breakout single, Whip It. Here's the thing about Whip It, it wasn't really written to be a hit, it was an inside joke. The lyrics were inspired by Thomas Pynchon's Gravity Rainbow and modelled after self-help mantras. You know the ones, you can do it, stay positive, keep your chin up, feedback is the breakfast of champions. Except this was Devo, so they twisted it into something weirdly aggressive. When a problem comes along, you must whip it. Is it about perseverance? Is it about something else kinky? Nobody knew, nobody cared because that beat was unstoppable. The song is 2 minutes and 39 seconds of perfect machine-tooled pop, a galloping drum machine, spiky little synth stabs, and Mark Mothersbaugh's nasal monotone, all culminating in the unmistakable chorus, whip it good. Warner Brothers didn't think Whip It was a hit, but radio DJs picked it up, college stations played it endlessly, and by sheer force of repetition, it climbed to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. It turned Devo into an MTV-friendly novelty act, whether they wanted to be or not. The video featuring the band in their now iconic red energy domes and a strange surreal cowboy meets BDSM aesthetic was a constant presence on early MTV. And yet, it barely made a dent in the UK, reaching number 51 on the charts. 7 weeks and out. That's it. Why? British audiences embraced a lot of weird stuff in the early 80s. Gary Newman, Adam and the Ants, Soft Cell. But somehow Devo didn't connect. Maybe the satire was too American. Maybe the robot aesthetic felt out of sync with the darker, more gothic-tinged new wave scene happening across the pond. Maybe British audiences just weren't ready to whip it good. But in the US, Whip It became immortal. It's been in Rugrats, it's been in Family Guy, and roughly 1,000 commercials, including one for Swiffer, because nothing screams devolution like using a disposable mop to clean your kitchen floor. Devo, who started as an art collective with a punk ethos, watched as their biggest hit was reduced to a jingle for consumer products. The irony, of course, was not lost on them. After Freedom of Choice, Devo kept going, releasing several more albums, but they never quite hit the same commercial peak. The 80s turned into the 90s, and Devo became more of a cult concern. Mark Mothersbaugh found a new life composing music for TV and film, most notably for Rugrats and Wes Anderson movies. And yet, Devo never fully faded away. Their influence is everywhere, from electronic music to nerd culture to the very idea that being a weird, hyper-self-aware art band is something worth doing. Whip It might not have topped the charts, but it outlasted plenty of songs that did. Devo always knew the world was getting dumber. They just didn't expect to be proven quite so right. Track 6, and we come to an American Idol. The boss, the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen. So Bruce Springsteen writes a song for the Ramones. That's where we start. Just picture that. Alternate timelines. Joey Ramone's punk overtones over that lilting piano riff. Dee Dee barreling through the chorus at breakneck speed. But no, fate, or more specifically Springsteen's manager John Landau, intervened. Boss, you should keep this one. And so, in 1980, the world gets Hungry Hearts, the first Bruce Springsteen song to crash the Billboard Top 10, and a 3-minute pop rock anomaly in the midst of an album, The River, that was all about contradictions, joy and despair, rebellion and responsibility, life and death. Press play now. Despite being the boss, despite writing one of the most exhilarating rock songs of all time, Born to Run, despite being hailed as the future of rock and roll in 1975, Springsteen by 1980 was not a pop star, not yet. Born in Freehold, New Jersey in 1949, Springsteen spent the 60s playing in bands with names that sound like garage rock, Madlibs, the Castiles, Earth, Steel Mill. He had the talent, the vision, the ferocious live shows, but it took getting signed to Columbia Records and dropping Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey in 1973 to get the machine rolling. It did not roll fast. The album flopped. The follow-up, The Wild, the Innocent and the E Street Shuffled fared slightly better, but was still far from commercial glory. Bruce and the E Street Band were clawing their way to something bigger. And then Born to Run in 1975. The title track alone is the musical equivalent of flooring it on the New Jersey Turnpike with no regard for speed limits or common sense. The album makes Springsteen a star, and suddenly he's on the cover of both Time and Newsweek in the same week, which is how you know you've made it in 1975. But then, legal drama. Springsteen's tangled contract with early manager Mike Apple means he can't record new music for nearly 3 years. By the time he finally gets back in the studio, he's gone from starry-eyed kid dreaming of escape to a grown man grappling with real-world darkness. Darkness on the Edge of Town in 1978 is grim, brooding, the post-Born to Run hangover. It's great, but it does not have hits. Bruce still is not huge the way he's about to be. Enter the River, 1980. It's a double album because Bruce had a lot to say. It's messy and magnificent, and somewhere in the middle of all this sits the song Hungry Heart. Springsteen had never written a song like this before. It's bouncy, borderline breezy. His voice is sped up slightly, making him sound younger, like a helium-infused road warrior. He's got Mark Volman and Howard Kaylan from the Turtles. Yes, Happy Together Turtles singing backup because why not? The melody is pure gold and the lyrics fantastic. First verse, got a wife and kids in Baltimore. Jack, I went out for a ride and I never came back. That's how it starts. That's your protagonist, a dude who straight up ditches his family in the first line. Bruce had already spent years writing about running, but this guy isn't running towards anything. He's just gone. But then comes the chorus, and it's so warm, so anthemic, that it makes a song about a deadbeat dad sound romantic. Everybody's got a hungry heart. This is the magic trick. Springsteen is America's poet laureate of regret and redemption, and Hungry Heart lives right at the intersection. And people love it. It hits number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100. In the UK, not so much at first. It peaks at number 44, but in 1995, when they reissue it for the greatest hits, it climbs to number 28. Better late than never. Springsteen suddenly has a massive hit, an honest-to-God pop song, and it changes things. The River Tour is massive. Hungry Heart becomes a sing-along staple at shows where Bruce, ever the showman, lets the crowd handle the first verse because they know it all by heart. And look, the song's legacy is weird and wonderful. It shows up in movies like Risky Business and The Wedding Singer. It soundtracks an episode of The Sopranos, which is pretty much a rite of passage for any great New Jersey anthem. But the best thing about Hungry Heart is that for all its pop sheen, it still sounds like Springsteen. A man who just kept searching, because, as he'll spend the next 4 decades proving, everybody's got a hungry heart. For our final track today, prepare yourself for something so saccharine sweet, you'll need a trip to the dentist afterwards. And the bad news is, you'll need a filling for that cavity this song has just left. It is Christmas, December 1980. A seismic moment in music history. John Lennon's Just Like Starting Over is climbing the UK charts in the wake of his assassination. Abba is still an unstoppable force. Blondie are turning the pop world on its head with The Tide is High. But at the top of the UK singles chart, standing tall in the coveted Christmas #1 spot, is not John, not Abba, not Debbie Harry. No, it's a primary school choir from Stockport, singing a treacly ode to grandmothers everywhere. This is our final track today. There's No One Quite Like Grandma by the St Winifred School Choir is objectively one of the strangest Christmas #1s in British pop history. It is also, somewhat inexplicably, one of the most memorable. I mention it in the very introduction episode to this pod. You do not forget hearing a group of 10-year-olds in their most earnest angelic tones belting out, "Grandma, we love you, Grandma, we do. Though you may be far away, we think of you." If you were alive in Britain at the time, you either loved this song or you hated it with the fire of 1,000 suns. There was no middle ground. St Winifred School Choir was no stranger to the charts. They had already appeared on the UK #1 hit Matchstick Men and Matchstick Cats and Dogs in 1978, a folk pop tribute to painter L.S. Lowry. But There's No One Quite Like Grandma was all theirs. Written by Gordon Lorenz, a composer with a flair for the sentimental, the song was an unapologetic, syrupy, single-minded love letter to grandmothers. Released in November 1980, it climbed the charts steadily. It debuted at number 47, crept to number 35, then 16, and then by mid-December, it had overtaken both Jonah Louie's Stop the Cavalry and the Police's Da-Do-Do-Do-Da-Da-Da-Da to become the official UK Christmas #1. It held that top spot for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks in which the British public, gripped by Christmas sentimentality and probably a bit too much sweet sherry, chose the warbling voices of Stockport schoolchildren over the Police's new wave musings or Lennon's posthumous comeback. There's No One Quite Like Grandma sold over 1 million copies and became the 20th best-selling single of 1980. It was a phenomenon, but as with all novelty Christmas hits, the backlash was swift and merciless. Some critics found it unbearable, some resented it for robbing Jonah Louie's now classic Stop the Cavalry of the Christmas #1 title. Allegedly, the late producer Martin Hannett was caught snorting coke off the There's No One Quite Like Grandma gold disc. And then, of course, there's the most famous former member of the choir, Sally Lindsay, who went on to become a TV star in Coronation Street. With over 70 years of Christmas #1 history, the UK charts have seen some wild winners: Mr. Blobby, Bob the Builder, a choir of NHS nurses. But There's No One Quite Like Grandma is in a category of its own. It's not just a novelty song, it weaponised nostalgia. It was tailor-made for a time when the UK was in recession, the government was a mess, and people wanted something warm and fuzzy to cling to. And what's warmer and fuzzier than a choir of schoolchildren telling you that they love their nan? The world could be falling apart, but at least Grandma was still here, and even if she wasn't, she was being immortalised in song. Is There's No One Quite Like Grandma a good song? That's almost beside the point. It exists, it happened, it conquered the charts, and it still resurfaces every Christmas like some kind of nostalgic fever dream. For every person who recoils at its saccharine harmonies, there's another who hears it and remembers a time when their nan was still around. It's not a good song, but it is a pantheon-level track for the memories it brings us all who were there of a much, much simpler time. Nan, snooker on the telly, a 5-bar fire, crumpets, chocolate limes and Murray mints, Christmases now long past. Say what you want about progress, but the world got itself in a big hurry. That's it for the first half of Playlist 16, but do join us next time as we encounter Madness's most socially conscious song. We hear the aforementioned Jonah Louie with his Christmas push, meet Chaz and Dave for the first time, hear a Christmas song I bet you've never heard of before, and end with Adamant's coming out party. As always, if you can give us a follow on your podcast platform of choice, I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, have a great week. Take care.